Cantoria Nicole Edwards, wife, mother, grandmother, she dedicated her life to her family. So when one of her grandbabies needed her, she stepped in, gaining control over her granddaughter, whose unfit mother wasn't able to care for the baby girl. She wanted to make sure that baby Jordan had a good life in a clean, safe, and stable environment. Her son had a relationship with this woman here, that's Trinisa Watts. Of course, the relationship didn't last long because none of these gatherings or encounters with these toxic modern women ever last. Their relationships last long enough to impregnate them, and then it's downhill from there. The 52-year-old grandmother did whatever she could to help her son and Trinisa care for their daughter by gaining full custody of her granddaughter. Trinisa didn't have any court-mandated visitation, and she wasn't in her daughter's life at all. The baby spent most of her time with her grandmother, her father, and his side of the family. But Cantoria didn't want to completely shut out Trinisa, so when Trinisa called her saying that she wanted to see her daughter, the grandmother did what she could to arrange the meeting in a safe public environment, Starbucks. What Cantoria didn't know was the level of evil that was waiting for her at Starbucks that day. The evil, wicked demon within Trinisa. Take a second to make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and click the notification bell for all updates. If you're watching from Dallas, Richardson, Arlington, Fort Worth, or anywhere in between, let me know below in the comments. Much love to the DFW area. April 2022, Trinisa Watts was 23 years old, and after years of getting in trouble, even being locked up for a period of time, she decided to take her anger out on her baby daddy's mother, because his mother had full custody of their daughter, which really says something about Trinisa, by the way. How often do you see women losing custody to the paternal grandmother? Trinisa was more concerned with running around doing whatever she wanted to do without consequences, instead of becoming a woman and taking care of her daughter. On April 18, 2022, Trinisa got someone to drop her off at the front of Cantoria's neighborhood. The then 23-year-old walked to Cantoria's house, where she knocked on the door but no one answered. She saw a neighbor there and questioned the woman about the residents of the home. The neighbor didn't know much about Cantoria or her family. She would just see people there from time to time. So the neighbor told Trinisa that she didn't know anything. Trinisa left the neighborhood and called Cantoria asking to see her daughter, and Cantoria wanting to do the right thing, she didn't want to alienate Trinisa, so she agreed to meet her at Starbucks. About 2 hours later at 7 p.m., Cantoria met Trinisa there at Starbucks. That's when Trinisa pulled a move that she had been planning for Cantoria all along. She pulled out a gun and shot her. The first officer on the scene saw Trinisa, who attempted to leave with the child, and he was able to quickly apprehend her. When additional officers arrived on the scene, they started life-saving measures after finding a gunshot wound. Paramedics transported the grandmother to the hospital, where unfortunately she did not survive. Cantoria was pronounced deceased, leaving behind her husband, children, and grandchildren.
Richardson police charged a woman with capital murder after they say she shot and killed her child's paternal grandmother at a Starbucks.
Police say Trinisa Watts does not have custody of her little girl, Jordan. The child's grandmother, Cantoria Edwards, did, and they say Watts pulled out a gun and shot Edwards in front of the child in order to take her. Fox 4's Peyton Yeager live in Richardson with the story. Peyton.
Heather, and Cantoria Edwards had custody of the child for the majority of her life. Family members tell me the child's mother and now accused murderer is not involved. They rarely met up, but last night Edwards agreed to meet up here at this Richardson Starbucks.
It's just sad because she took full custody of her to have a better life.
Jasmine Parnell says her aunt, 52-year-old Cantoria Goodson Edwards, always put her family first. Edwards was the legal guardian of her 3-year-old granddaughter, Jordan.
She loved Jordan a lot. She died protecting her granddaughter.
Monday evening, police say 3-year-old Jordan witnessed her grandmother's murder on a Starbucks patio in Richardson. The child's mother, 23-year-old Trinisa Watts, now the accused killer.
I don't know what was going on in her mind on that day, yesterday, but they haven't had no contact with her.
Parnell says prior to the Starbucks meetup, Watts showed up at Edwards' Richardson home looking for Edwards and 3-year-old Jordan, but neither were home. Later that evening at 7 p.m., Edwards agreed to meet Watts at a nearby Starbucks along with another adult family member. According to investigators, Watts then pulled out a gun and shot Edwards before picking up her child and trying to leave the parking lot. Richardson police arrived on scene in time to stop Watts from getting away, taking her into custody. 3-year-old Jordan was unharmed. Edwards was rushed to the hospital with a gunshot wound where she died.
Pure evilness, because my auntie loved her granddaughter.
Edwards' family says Watts is estranged from Jordan's father and has not been a part of the toddler's life. Public records show nearly 20 criminal case filings against Watts since 2016 for robbery and multiple cases of assault and theft. And records show she served time in prison. Child Protective Services would not comment on any history it had with Watts. Edwards leaves behind 3 children.
Right here.
Her husband.
This is her and her husband, Kenneth.
And a loving family spread out across North Texas. All who plan on making sure little Jordan is taken care of.
She's still going to be able to be in a good environment with her father and all our family, her other grandparents. She's very loved all over.
Watts sits in jail tonight with a $1 million bond. Edwards' family hopes to hold her funeral next weekend. Back to you.
In my opinion, the whole thing was premeditated. I believe that Tranisa planned to take Cantoria out at her home. But when no one answered the door, she didn't get access to harm anybody. But she was so determined to get rid of Cantoria that she called her and was able to lure the grandmother to Starbucks. Yeah, Tranisa planned all of this. But now she's trying to avoid accountability and claims that she's mentally unstable. The trial was supposed to begin in June, but they canceled everything to get her a mental examination, prolonging the situation, and possibly get her transported to a mental health facility instead.
Justice delayed for the family of a woman shot and killed by her grandchild's mother at a Richardson Starbucks. The trial for Tranisa Watts was set to start last week, but a recent evaluation led a judge to put the trial on hold. Fox 4's Peyton Yeager spoke with the victim's niece. Peyton.
Cantoria Goodson Edwards' family has had this trial on their calendar for months now. They had family flying in. They also had people taking off of work. But just days before the trial was set to start, they got a phone call that for now the trial is being called off.
Her oldest child, DeAndrea, got married right after. Our family reunions haven't been the same. Her oldest granddaughter, Cantoria, just graduated high school.
Photographs over the last 14 months show the memories Jasmine Parnell wished she could have shared with her aunt, Cantoria Goodson Edwards.
It hurts because she should be here for all these milestones that she has missed this whole past year.
The 52-year-old was shot and killed outside a Richardson Starbucks in April 2022 in front of her 3-year-old granddaughter, Jordan. Goodson Edwards, Jordan's paternal grandmother, was the child's legal guardian at the time. On April 18th, 2022, Jordan's mother, Tranisa Watts, begged to meet up and see Jordan at a Starbucks off Renner Road. Watts didn't have custody of Jordan. On the patio, police say Watts pulled out a gun and murdered Goodson Edwards in order to take the little girl.
We would have had peace, closure, but now we have to wait more months to finally know what the verdict will be.
Tuesday, Parnell spoke to Fox 4, still in disappointment during this prolonged process. She planned on attending Watts' scheduled capital murder trial in Collin County last week, but in the 11th hour, the trial was canceled. Online records show the courts found Watts incompetent to stand trial after her defense team requested a mental health evaluation. Watts does have a lengthy criminal history dating back to 2016, including criminal case filings for robbery, assault, and theft. Records also show she served time in prison.
We know she's still in jail, but we just want to know how long will she be in there for.
As Parnell and her family wait for their day in court, Jordan continues to grow older. She's now 4 years old and lives with her father.
her legal guardian.
She still remembers her granny. She go to Walmart, she'll be like, Granny. She'll look at my mom and say, Granny, because they kind of look alike. So she still, misses her granny.
And Steve, still several weeks until we figure out what is next. A hearing is set for July, and then a medical status for Watts is set for September.
Trenisa, who is now 25 years old, is doing whatever she can to avoid prison, planned this whole thing out to take Cantoria's life, and now she should be held accountable. If she's crazy, then so is everyone else locked up in prison for taking somebody's life. I say lock her up and keep her there. Now, I do want to highlight the importance of protecting your seed and not laying down with crazy flamingos. I'm glad to hear the father has his child now, but you all need to teach your sons about getting twisted up with these twisted women. Yeah, sure, he didn't stay around her. Usually it is the bad behavior and attitudes of these modern women that make them hard to do anything with. I get it. But what you don't do is get these flamingos pregnant and get tied up to them forever. It was his relationship with the wrong woman that led to his mom's life being taken. And of course, the usual protect black women crowd didn't care about following Cantoria's story because it didn't meet the qualifications. The suspect can never be another black woman. It's got to be a black man or a white policeman. That's it. If it's a black woman, you can forget about it. The usual babbling hands will bury this story along with the victim and act like Trenisas don't exist, when the Trenisas of America are the worst because one, they're never held accountable at all. They literally have to take somebody's life to ever be deemed a threat. And even after that, they can play games like this to avoid accountability, or they're not given harsh sentences like men. The original trial was supposed to be in June, then it was pushed back to October, but I think now they canceled that. And she's waiting to be transported to some mental facility in a couple of weeks instead. And that's why the victim's family is worried that one day Trenisa will be let out. Sending condolences to Mrs. Edwards' family. They definitely want justice and they deserve it. Her husband, her children, her grandchildren, nieces, nephews. And listen, I don't want to hear anything about this mental foolishness either. Lock Trenisa up and keep her there. She's a danger to the community. She doesn't belong anywhere outside of a jail cell, and that's it. Keep this female dog locked up. Let's go ahead and get the conversation started. If this had been a man in the same situation, would this same report even be possible? Special thank you to Chris and Paul. I appreciate you all for your support for the channel, as well as Judith Lyon, Robert P., Ken, and all of the ladies who support and contribute to this channel. Roxana, Trey Shell, big shout out to Tiffany, and special thank you to my sister Keita. I appreciate all of you ladies for your support. Don't forget that you can support this channel as well. Links to Cash App and PayPal are below. Ladies, fellas, want a balanced analysis, want the truth from a woman's perspective? Then you're going to want to subscribe to this channel and don't forget to like and share.